So, I was super excited about my date with Ava. We've been talking about it for weeks, and finally decided to book an Airbnb in the countryside. But when we pulled up to the place, things got weird real fast. The driveway was already packed with cars, and the lights were on inside. I could swear I had made sure it was booked solely for us. Liam, are you sure this is the right place? Ava asked, skeptically. I double-checked the address and told her we were at the right Airbnb. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap, but we decided it was better off to confront the host. We rang the doorbell, and a tall, rugged-looking man answered the door. He welcomed us inside and introduced himself as the host. When I confronted him about the cars, he told us there had been a mix-up, but that we could have all the first floor to ourselves. By this time, strangers had come into my view. They seemed agreeable enough, but something about them sent shivers down my spine. I had an instinct that we should leave, but we'd already driven quite a few miles, and it would be a hassle to head back so late at night. So we just stayed and tried to make the best of the situation, chatting with them and having some wine. But things started to get creepy real fast. They were always lurking just out of sight, and their laughter seemed forced and hollow. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching us, waiting for something. And then, we started hearing weird noises coming from the basement. Ava wanted to check it out, but one of them, Kyle, blocked my way and said the basement was off limits. I had a hunch that something terrible was happening down there, and I could even see the apprehension in his eyes. The night went from bad to worse. The strangers started getting aggressive and erratic, whispering and laughing among themselves. Skeptical, Ava and I barricaded ourselves in the room, making sure we had locked the door and all the windows, hoping we could ride out this storm until morning. But the night was far from over. We heard some footsteps, and someone started knocking on the door, demanding to be let in. We could hear them whispering, as if they were plotting something. It was better to be safe than sorry, so I signaled Ava to be quiet, pretending to be asleep. It was then we heard a blood-curdling scream somewhere from the basement. Terrified, we waited for the sun to rise. We could hear them moving outside, and it was clear they wouldn't let us leave without a fight, and they could be armed. We tried to devise a plan, and it hit me that I could text someone. So I texted my friend Jacob about the issue, and told him to call 911. After around an hour, the hushed murmurs turned to panicked rustle-bustle. Probably the police had arrived. We could hear them frantically packing up their things. I heard one of them mutter something about getting caught. My heart leaped with hope. Before they could escape, the front door burst open, and a team of police officers stormed inside. The group was arrested, and Ava and I were shaken, but relieved that we made it out alive. We gave our statements to the police, and were taken to a safe location until the investigation was complete. Sometime later, we discovered that our bravery that night helped to bring down one of the biggest human trafficking rings in the area. We were informed that the basement was full of evidence, including weapons and remains of their victims. It was a truly horrifying experience, one that stayed with us forever.
Story 2. I was beyond excited about our getaway with my boyfriend Josh. We had both been so busy with work lately that we were desperate for quality time alone. We found the perfect Airbnb nestled in the picturesque countryside. The views were breathtaking, and the cozy fireplace was just begging for us to cuddle up in front of it. As we stepped into the Airbnb, an unsettling feeling crept over me. It was as if someone was watching me. I tried to brush it off and focus on settling in, telling myself that it was probably just Josh looking at me. But soon, strange things caught my attention. The curtains in the bedroom didn't quite close all the way, and there were no locks on the windows or doors, which seemed odd for a rental property. I tried to rationalize it, thinking that maybe the host was just forgetful or negligent. Still, the nagging feeling in the back of my mind persisted, making me uneasy. So, I told my boyfriend, and although he was unsure, he thought it made sense that it was all too creepy to be a coincidence. By the second night of our stay, we couldn't take it anymore. We needed answers, and we needed to confront the host. So Josh called her and asked her to come over to talk to us. She arrived promptly, looking nervous and jittery, as if she already knew what we were going to talk about. At first, she denied any misconduct and tried to brush off our concerns by saying that it was all just a coincidence, and that she just didn't have time to fix everything. That she was busy, but I could see right through her lies. So, I threatened her that if she didn't tell us what was going on, I would call the police, and then she would have to deal with the consequences. Finally, she broke down and confessed to everything. It was a shock to hear that she had been following my boyfriend for weeks before we even booked the Airbnb, and she had become obsessed with him. Not to mention, she even paid Josh's colleague to suggest this Airbnb to us. Then, she installed cameras all over the house to watch us, and she even had a secret room where she would spy on us. The news was a bombshell, and we were both shaken to our core. The thought of someone spying on us was not only unnerving, but also downright creepy. Our first instinct was to leave immediately and put as much distance as possible between the host and us. But then, a sense of responsibility washed over me. I knew that if this host could do this to us, she could do it to anyone else. We couldn't let her get away with it. So we decided to call the police and report her behavior. Although we couldn't believe we were in this situation, we knew it was the right thing to do. The police arrived promptly and conducted a thorough investigation. It turned out that the host had a history of similar incidents, and she was later arrested and charged with several offenses. Although the incident left us both feeling violated and uneasy, we were relieved that we had taken action to prevent it from happening to someone else. This also made us realize that humans are much scarier than ghosts. Story number 3. I never imagined that I would become one of those women who fall prey to online dating scams. Yet, there I sat, in an upscale restaurant, across from him, laughing at his jokes and sensing that I had finally found my ideal partner. Ethan, as he told me, was charming, knew how to keep a conversation, and had good looks. Pretty much everything I wanted. We hit it off so well that I eagerly accepted when he suggested returning to his Airbnb. However, my excitement soon dispersed when we arrived at the location. The building looked very sketchy, with shattered windows and rusted gates. It was a major red flag that I ignored. How could a guy like him be staying in such a dodgy place? But I brushed it off. My heart started pounding, and I began to feel uneasy about the situation. But I ignored it, telling myself I was just nervous. As we made our way up the stairs, I couldn't help but notice bizarre markings on the walls and doors, like someone had been going at them with a knife. I asked him about it, but he just brushed it off as probably being some graffiti. But when we finally arrived at the room, I immediately sensed something wasn't right. The door looked old and flimsy, and the lock seemed fragile. As soon as he unlocked the door, I stepped inside, and my unease only grew stronger. The stale smell of the place was overbearing, and I couldn't help but notice the peeling wallpaper that revealed the moldy walls underneath. The furniture looked even more old and worn, with deep cracks and chips, and even the carpet had visible dried-out stains. There were even crumbs on the table, used dirty towels piled up in the corner, and empty wine bottles by the window. I was about to suggest we find somewhere else to stay when I caught sight of the bed. It was covered in a strange-looking duvet, and something about how it was draped sent shivers down my spine. He probably read the look of terror on my face and laughed sinisterly. "It took you long enough to catch up to what was going on, Emily." I tried to turn and leave, but he suddenly grabbed me and locked the door behind us. His face twisted into a monstrous grin, and I knew then that I was in deep trouble. That realization hit me even harder. The man I thought I knew was not who he claimed to be. I had been lured into this trap using the guise of a romantic date. An Airbnb was not a place for us to stay somewhere he planned to hurt me. My heartbeat increased as I struggled to break free from his grasp. Fear consumed me, and I knew I had to act fast. With all my might, I swung my purse and hit him in the ribs as hard as I could. The man groaned in pain, and his grip loosened just enough for me to break free. I didn't hesitate. I darted towards the door, focusing on unlocking it as quickly as possible. I could feel him just behind me as I unlocked the door, but I didn't stop. I ran down the hallway, heart racing, and I didn't look back until I was outside. I ran as far as I could, and only stopped when I saw a 7-Eleven nearby. Trembling with fear, I sat down and dialed 911, my mind still reeling from what had just happened. I reported the man's location and gave a description of him to the operator. The police arrived quickly, and the man was arrested. As it turned out, he was a known stalker and psychopath with a history of violence against women.